As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Dennis Dowdell, once a school bus driver with no business background, built a global team of 250,000 people with over 300 members in the top 1% of income earners, despite graduating college with a 1.98 GPA. At 30, Dennis sought a better life and began a 40-year journey of transforming lives through a health startup. Mentored by influential figures, he adopted universal principles that uplifted anyone regardless of background. His experiences, detailed in Maximizing You, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, inspired confidence and potential in ordinary individuals and leaders alike. Hey, Dennis, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate you being here.
Man, great to be with you, and what an honor, and be able to have an opportunity to share with your audience. Entrepreneurs, they're I love them. They're the best. They're the most amazing people on the planet, and so it's a joy to be able to share some thoughts and ideas with them.
Oh, thank you. I know that for me, I have a huge passion for entrepreneurs because and I always really badly quote him when I say this, but I'll just kind of use my own version of it, where it's what Steve Jobs said in, I think it was his commencement speech to Stanford one year. He said, "We're the ones that are crazy enough to change the world." And I think that's something that entrepreneurs can give to the world. And I believe we hold a very special spot, and we hold a very special spot in the world, and we hold a duty to really help people to change that world. And that's why that's why I'm really happy to have you on here, because you have quite the career. You have a very long-spanning career, a very, very good speaker. You've had 44 years in business experience, with hundreds and hundreds of top performers. And I love having people on with that much experience because there's so much knowledge you have over a career of that long. So let's get started a little bit. And what I want to hear is, let's set some context for people that may not know you. What do you do? What's your ninja skill?
Well, really what I do is I build people, so that they can realize that being successful in developing a business isn't nearly as hard or difficult as they think it is. Mm-hmm. And when I can build the people, then the people can build whatever business they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
that's basically it.
Yeah. I love it. It's so succinct, but it really says a lot. Like we were talking about in the green room about, we have by building people. So like I build keynotes to help people, and I can help a lot more than just one. Every one keynote I have will literally help thousands. You have a similar thing as well that you can, and we were talking about this earlier. I want you to expand a little bit about that and how you help, you multiply your helping factor. Let's put it that way.
Well, the first thing is when I'm dealing with people, because really, for 44 years, I basically helped set up independent contractors to develop their own personal business. So basically, I'm creating entrepreneurs. That's what I've done for 44 years. And my first encounter with whoever I'm talking to, I tell them right from the beginning, I said, listen, guys, here's the product. Here's the plan. I know what the product does. I know what the plan does. I don't know. But what I want to do is I want to equip you with the tools and principles that will allow you to do whatever you want with this product and this plan. And so really what I'm trying to do, I'm not hiring an employee or anything else. You're an independent contractor. And really what I'm trying to do is put myself out of a job. Because when you know what I know and you can do what I do, I don't have to do it anymore. Okay? But I still get paid. So, because I get paid for whatever they do for the rest of their life. So that's the joy of it. And you can have so much fun. And the idea is that the principles work for everybody. And that's the beauty of it. And I've had some brilliant mentors who have radically changed my life. I mean, some major peoples that I've been very fortunate to spend time with and absorb and assimilate a lot of who they are and how they do things. And so I'm just passing it on. I mean, I'm just an old school bus driver, Andrew. So but I love simplicity, and when people keep things simple, and that's what I've mastered. I've mastered keeping things simple so that everybody can apply it.
I have to say, so I want to go back and touch on that. You said I'm just an old school bus driver. You have a little bit more to the story than that. And so I want to make sure that people understand what your story is. How did you get from school bus driver, who, if I'm also correct, barely graduated college, to helping high level entrepreneurs and helping people to basically put you out of business for, kind of, or take away your job for a second.
Right.
How did you get there? What was the path that you had to get to that point?
Well, I tell you, I mean, you're right. I barely graduated, with the grade status. The GPA was highly lacking. But really, the education I got in college wasn't the courses, it was the people. I got an education in people and personalities while I was in college. And so I developed the people skills. So, and I love the idea of helping people. I mean, there's always a greater joy. It's just like anything. What do you enjoy more? Giving a gift or receiving a gift? I mean, you always love giving the gift, and especially when it's something they really like, right? So I love the idea of giving. I love the idea of helping to make a difference for people. But so when I graduated from college, I thought, well, I don't want a job. That's the last thing I want. I want a career where I can make a difference for people. That was my purpose. But then my pleasure was I also want to be able to travel the world. And I happened in after college. I actually, that's why I was driving the school bus, because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, I don't want to join a company and just work for a few years and then let them go or whatever. I want to really find something that's going to lock in that I can stay at for the rest of my life. So there for a few years, I'm driving the school bus. I have off during the middle of the day when the kids are at school. Well, that gave me time to really look things out. I mean, when I was really seriously looking, I spent 7 months really going for everything. I mean, when I went to newspapers, we had newspapers back then. People don't know what those are. Anyway, that's where you look for jobs. But had the newspapers and headhunters, employment agents, all the different things. And that's when I stumbled across this company in the health industry, and I thought, wow, here's a product that really does something for people. And when I first sat in this presentation, the guy said, "Gang, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go." And he didn't know this. He didn't know what my hot points were, but he hit both of them. He said, "Gang, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and make a difference for people." My eyes opened up. I mean, my ears opened up, right? But my eyes did too. I thought, what? He says, we're going to go out and make a difference, city by city, state by state, country by country, and we're going around the world. And I went, whoa, 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 make a difference around the world. And I was listening to this presentation and it sounded like sales. That's why I closed my ears. I just wanted to get out of there because I said, I hate sales. I don't like sales, don't want sales, not doing sales, right? And but when I heard those two things, I said, okay, wait a second. I got to find out. You got to tell me a little something more. And so it kind of locked in. And he said, Denny, that's what we're going to do. And I said, but guys, I just so hate sales. And he said, Denny, he said, don't you work with college kids? And I said, yeah. And he said, what do you do with them? And I said, well, I just help them, deal with life, deal with family, school, and all kinds of things. Just whatever problems they have, I just help them to overcome the obstacles. And he said, good. He said, do any of them have weight problems? And I said, Mark, they're in college. Have you never heard of the freshman 15, freshman 30? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, do any of them have financial problems? I said, Mark, what are you getting at? I said, they're in college. Of course they have financial problems. And he said, Danny, he says, you now have 2 more problems to solve. Andrew, the penny dropped. I never thought about sales for the rest of my life. I've never had to think about it because I've never had to sell anybody anything. And for any entrepreneur, they got to understand this. They're not selling anything. All they're doing is solving a problem that their clients haven't been able to solve up to that point in time. And so it's great news that you're there because you may be the only one who can solve that problem for them. Obviously, nobody else has up to that point in time. And so I got locked in. I said, I can do this. And that's what I want people to know. They can do it. They can do so much more than they realize when they just understand a few basic principles of developing a business.
Yeah. And I think I completely resonate with that because for the longest time, I said, I will never have a sales job. I hate it. It's sleazy. I felt like a dirty used car salesman. I just, it was not me. I was not going to do it. And then as soon as I learned how to sell correctly and not just kind of me, I'm going to sell. It's like you said, absolutely create a solution to a problem they have. Completely different mindset. Now I find out I'm actually kind of good at it. But I think it's one of those things that we realized it's not about me. It's not about just taking from you, which is what we think sales is. It's
Right.
something different. It's let me solve a problem for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is amazing. And you know what it does? It takes all the pressure off. I mean, I would talk to some people and, then they started, what about this? What, all these different things that they didn't want. And I said, listen, I said, buddy, I said, listen, I understand. I said, listen, if you don't like my product, you keep your problem. I'll keep my product. We're both happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I was just that way. It was just so matter of fact to me. I mean, if I can't help you solve your problem, there's no need to continue.
Exactly. And if it's not a win-win, I mean, like Stephen Covey's win-wins,
That's
if it's not a win-win, it's not, it's going to be a waste of energy for all people, and it's just not worth it. So, yeah, I 100% resonate with that.
Yeah.
So one of the major things that I know you're really good at, and it comes across that you're just very good at this intrinsically, is the people skills and the interconnection. And to get you kind of started on it, I know that it's similar to what I try to do. I'm one of those people, I will make friends with anyone, and I love talking to people. It's part of the job that I'll do. And I want you to talk a little bit about how that's really affected your life, as being able to connect, because I think it's a very underrated skill.
Well, you'll find out here in a second that this is more of a miraculous type thing than you know. What most people don't realize is I am so much of an introvert. Okay. But the problem is, see, when people see me, they see me on stage, and I don't know what it is. When I first met my wife, she was a customer of mine, and so we're coming down, and she had, I've been working. She says, "Well, listen, I think I'd like to do this, develop a business too." And I said, "Oh, I can show you how to do that." And I said, "Goodness, come on down. We're going to have a big event training. I'm doing a little training down here. She come on down." Well, she'd known me for probably 8 or 10 months, and so we go down to this event, and then I'm the guest speaker, and so they introduce me, and I get up on the stage, and I start running through my presentation, my little training, and she's going like this, and her eyes open up. She looks to the girl next to her. She says, "Who is that guy?" I mean, and I don't know what it is, but it's like when I get on a stage that somebody flips the switch, But I think what it is that I know that I've got something that can radically change somebody's life, and I know that it'll work, and I know that if they'll just apply it, they can walk out that very day and be a different person and improve their skills and abilities with some very simple things. And so, but when I get off the stage, when you get off the stage, a lot of people, they, getting in photos and all that kind of stuff. When I get off the stage, I go back to the green room. It's just me. I mean, I love to be alone. I regenerate when I'm by myself. A lot of people regenerate when they're around people. I go to parties, take a few pictures. I was there, say hello, and leave.
It's called the Irish goodbye. I'm like an expert at it. You just kind of go. You just kind of disappear.
So I just wanted to put a context to this, okay, so that you understand. But the irony of the whole thing is, I'm in a people business. I'm in a business where, it's very social business where I've got to carry on, I've got to be social with not only the people that I know, but with people that I don't know. And so I had to get this figured out. The thing is, I like people. I mean, I really love people, right? They're fascinating. They're incredible. Everybody's so unique and different. So I really love that. So what I discovered is that I really don't have to say much. What I discovered is if I can just ask people questions about them, that's the one thing they know everything about. So you're not going to put them on the hot spot. If you ask people questions about them, their interest and what they like and why they do things and that kind of thing, then what happens is they'll just answer the question. You say, "Oh yeah, what about?" In other words, a lot of times, people will say, "Hey, so where are you from?" I never ask that question. because you know, Chicago, now what? So what I've learned today is that rather than say, where are you from? I say, hey, so what brought you here? You know, now they know that story. There's a story, and you were talking about stories earlier in the green room, right? It's a story. They know that story. And sometimes it's fascinating, sometimes it's dreadful, but it's a story and it brings up the emotions and all this. And so they tell you the story, you know, and it's, I mean, I ask you the same thing, you know, what, you know, so how did you come to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
You know, there's a story behind that, you know, so I can ask 3 or 4 questions. I can walk away and, you know, I find out later, they say, man, he's the most interesting guy. I haven't said a thing
Uh-huh. Yep.
other than the questions. So the key is I was very interested, and I am interested. It's fascinating to me. Who are you? You know, how did you get here, and what's your motivation? What drives you? What excites you? You know, rather than what do you do for a living? What do you live to do? You know, that's a whole different question. And so you learn so much, and it's just really, it really is fun and very enjoyable. And people love to talk about things they're confident about, things they know. And so that just works out real good. And so that's a key factor, is strive to be interested rather than interesting. And then the other thing is, and especially when you're dealing with people you don't know, where you might fall into a controversial issue, that you know how they can slip in when you're at parties and different stuff, you know, it happens, right? So rather than try to convince somebody of my point of view, my phrase is this: the principle is, you know, seek more to understand than be understood. And when I really try to understand people and who they are and where they're coming from and how they came to the conclusions that they did, actually what that does is that equips me and prepares me to better give them an intelligent response to where they are. If I try to give them a response before I know anything about them, how foolish is that? You know, always better to find out about your audience, you know, the person you're talking to, your client, you know, or whatever it is. You know, find out about them, get as much information as you can about them. You know, Harvey Mackay, guy's brilliant. I mean, I've never read his books, man. I'm telling you, talk about stories. This guy's a master storyteller. But he has his Mackay 66. He has 66 different items that all of his sales team has to know about every single one of their clients. So when he knows their birthdays, he knows what sports they like, he knows what movies they like. They know everything. So I mean, it's so valuable. And so I think that's a valuable aspect for any entrepreneur. Find out about the other person before you try to present what you want to present. Find out who they are, what they need, where they're coming from. You know, I mean, what do you mean by that? Somebody said something, well, what do you mean by that? You know, and all of a sudden you may discover they mean something entirely different than you thought. You know, how did you come to that conclusion? You know, in other words, what are your resources? Where did all that come from? Could be valuable information, you see. And if anything, even if it, you know, you just walk away. I mean, if it comes to the point where they don't agree with you, you don't agree with that, just say, well, you know, that's just very interesting. And so we're both happy, we both like each other, and we both still disagree. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something that we've forgotten, and it's an art form where I don't have to agree with you, but I want to understand. And so I think it's an art form we've really forgotten. We're in a very divisive culture right now where it's more about people talking at each other. And one of my favorite first words in a sentence is help me understand. I don't have to agree with it, but I want to hear what you have to say. And I want to hear what that is, because now that's brought something to my life. And again, I might think you're completely full of it, but now I have a better understanding and I can make a decision from a better, more informed position. And sometimes I learn, you know, with a career, you know, for me, with a career of 20 years in the learning industry, I love learning stuff. And that's part of what I do, is I like learning about people too. I think it's a term that hospitable discussion. I don't have to agree, but let's discuss it hospitably. Let's start to understand another side of things, and we all come out winner with it.
And the thing is it leaves the door open for future conversations where you know you can actually discuss a thing rather than argue about something. Mm-hmm. You actually have a discussion. We've lost the discussion art form, you know, and so I think that's real valuable to have that type of a thing.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I 100% agree. And to go back to the introvert thing. So when I was taking the Myers-Briggs, the person who gave it to me the first time had to go back and rescore it 3 times total because I was so like right in the middle with introvert and extrovert. I was dead center. She didn't think she scored it properly. And so I 100% understand. For me, I am mostly, I kind of err a little on introvert because, and I need that space to go back again. I can talk to people for a certain amount of time, but I get what you mean. You need to recharge. And I'm a green room guy. I have had some of the best conversations in green rooms. You get that many smart people together in the same room together, and it's usually not very many. So it's like what, 5, 6 people. There are some amazing magic that have happened in green rooms.
Oh, man, I mean, you know what it does? It stimulates ideas, so you leave the green room and then I can go home, be alone and say, I remember, I'm the kind of guy who'll actually write things down, take notes. But the thing is when I go home, I read them.
Yep.
A lot of people take a lot of notes at a seminar and they go home and put it on the shelf next to the rest of the notes. I put them on my desk. I want to go back through that and reread it and say, okay, how does that actually work? And I mean, man, I tell you what, I spent 23 years with Jim Rohn traveling and I never got tired of taking notes. And because he shared a lot of the same messages, I mean, after 20, so many years, I mean, it's a lot of the same things, different mix and stuff like that. But I would take notes on my notes. I said, oh, he's talking about this one. Oh, the seasons of life. Okay, let me pull out the seasons notes, right? But I would take notes on the notes. And then I go home and what happened and the brilliance. And this is why it's so important for entrepreneurs to be around people much smarter than them. Find a group of people who are smarter than you. Jim used to say, yeah, us millionaires, we used to, every once in a while, we'd invite in a few billionaires to kind of stimulate us some.
Yep.
But it really does. And it's real important to, gather, you go home and you get some of these ideas and it really, they begin to assimilate into your thinking, into your philosophy. And so, that proves to be extremely valuable, to just be around wise, smart people and then, and learn to ask questions. One of my mentors, a guy named Bob Beal, he's an executive mentor for Fortune 500, 100 companies and brilliant. I mean, the guy's probably the wisest human being I've ever met. When I first started spending time with him, he said, Denny, he said, let me tell you a key factor that will make a huge difference. Start collecting questions. And I said, collect questions? Collect questions. I mean, I've got hundreds of questions. I read books on questions, just questions, because you can ask one question, but you can ask it a different way and it has a whole different outcome, So anyway, yeah. So I mean, yeah, you're right, buddy. I mean, I think when you get back and you have those times together, it's real valuable. And then when you have that regeneration time, you've got a lot of food to feed on.
Yeah. Now, as somebody who's had amazing mentors like Jim Rohn and folks like that, I know this is something that a lot of people have trouble with when they first start in the entrepreneurial journey, where they've just sort of figured out they're wired very differently than the rest of the world. They may not have somebody around them to help, and they may not have any idea how to select a mentor or how to go. I've seen so many people who are like, I want a mentor. Can you be my mentor? And just approaching it in not the right way. So can you go into a little bit, how have you seen people choose mentors that have turned out to be a really good relationship for both sides of it? What is the best way that you found to choose a mentor and to seek one out?
Well, really, I think a lot of what it is, for me anyway, I have 5 major mentors in my life that literally transformed my life, my thinking. And each of them had a different aspect. Mark Hughes, the founder of the company I went to work with, the guy was a ninth grade educated genius. And he had an amazing ability to take complex issues and thoughts and reduce them down to their simplest form. He could simplify anything. And I thought, man, that's brilliant. And so by spending time with him, and then when I could, just throwing out questions, jot a little note, so just really kind of get him know. So all of a sudden, when you're around them, if at all possible, then, it gives you that opportunity. So they say, oh, there's that guy again. Oh, he's asking another question again, and then, you've got that opportunity. And here's what's amazing, Andrew, is most people don't realize it, but these people, who would be good mentors, they want to make a difference for people. They want to help people, right? And so it's actually an honor for them to have somebody come up and say, listen, I've been listening to you, and I like the way you think, I like your philosophy, I like what you're doing. I want to absorb those into my life. Could I buy you lunch? Could I just buy you lunch? The millionaire, Jim taught me all the time. He said, listen, find a millionaire, take him out to lunch. But this is after all, there's some time and stuff. Listen, I've read your book here. I love this thing. Could we have lunch? I'd just love to chat for a little bit, get some ideas. Well, that's an honor, you see. And when they know that you're serious, and when they know that you're a true student, you're not just trying to say, oh, I took a picture with so-and-so. Who cares? Listen, you get pictures with a million people and they don't remember. But when they know that you're a student and that you really want to learn, right? That makes a huge difference. Well, that happened with each one of these 5 individuals. Larry Thompson, he's authored the book, The Millionaire Training. Brilliant, master trainer. I mean, storyteller, principal combined. And just brilliant. So, and he learned, the guy created, I don't know how many millionaires, how many people, top in their industry, different industries, I said, but I've had the opportunity to spend time with him and go to lunch with him and travel with him. He's going to, I'm going, so there's a great value that way. Jim Rohn, golly, that was the greatest. That blew me away. Rick Warren, he started with a little church out in Southern California, with about 250 people. When I joined in there was about 400. When I left California a few years ago, they were up to about 80,000, right? But this guy taught me things about life and principles and integrating life and faith and balance. And it was just brilliant. What this guy did. And so, so when you get these people and you have an opportunity and you have different mentors for different things, you want to have a lot of us have a trainer for our workouts, athletes, they have a coach, we have business coach, we have sports coach, we have, different coaches for different things. And so, and that's why I recommend people, have a main life coach, mentor, but you want to have other people too, who are specialties in the areas that you want to be good at. And so when you're a real student and you pay attention and they begin to recognize you, that's the time when you can make the approach, say, oh yeah, I've seen you before. So they don't know you, but they know that you're hungry. They know that you ask good questions. And so those are key factors, because it's mentorship. It's not a teacher student. It's a relationship of how to deal with life, learning how to overcome the obstacles in life, how to respond to life situations from somebody who's already been there and done that. And you always want to go get around somebody who's been there and done what you want to do.
Exactly. And I'm a very strong believer in you're the network, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that we touched a little bit about coaches and mentors, very different relationship. Coaches are kind of help you get to that direction, and mentors a much more personal relationship. Yes. And I know my mentors are also good friends, and it's a different world. But I also believe it's such an integral part. I wanted to make sure we touched on that a little bit, just because it's such an integral part of being an entrepreneur. We're very different. A lot of people around us with the best of intentions will try to help and have no idea how to actually help. Having those people that have been there before us, it really is a major key to helping you move forward. So
the most brilliant people have mentors.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I know one guy who calls himself the mentor of mentors, because mentors have mentors too. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So talk a little bit, while we wrap up a little bit here, talk a little bit about your book, Maximizing You.
Well, it's very interesting because, as we started the show with, I had a lackluster GPA out of college. I was passed on probation to get into college and barely, got over that to get out, right? But it was very interesting because by spending time with these 5 different men over the years, several decades, you know, uh, I I really implemented and embedded a lot of the principles that each of them taught me over the years. And so Bob, he's so brilliant, and he questions, right? He can say, Denny, he says, you've amassed this incredible organization. I mean, you got 250,000 people over 50 countries. He said, how did you do that? What are the principles that you utilize to start from ground zero and grow and develop not just the individuals, but then leaders of leaders who developed this massive team for you? What are the principles and concepts that you used throughout the years that made that happen? And I said, well, I mean, man, there's a lot of them. And he said, make me a list. And I said, all right. So I go on, I write all these things down. I mean, I had well over 50 to begin with, but I kind of narrowed it down. But I said, hey, here's the list. Of course, now he knew what he was doing to start with, right? Before he ever asked me the question, kind of like any good attorney. You already know the answer before you ask it. So I sent him the list, and he says, well, Denny, he says, that book you had on your bucket list about 10, 12 years ago? And he said, yeah. And he says, you just wrote the outline. And I thought, wow. And so that's really the book, is a compilation of 45 major principles segmented into 6 different categories that not only built my life, but built my business and helped other people. Those are the principles that allowed me to develop leaders. And, they work for any culture, any kind of a person, any economy. Principles are constant. Strategies come and go, but principles are permanent. They don't change. And that's why they'll work for anybody. And the thing is, you don't have to be smart to implement them. You just have to know how to implement them. And if you know how, even if you don't completely understand it all, once you've done it a few times, you begin to say, wow, it really does work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the book is. And I cover purpose, because without a purpose, you're going nowhere, and if you want to fulfill your purpose, the goal is to become the person necessary to be able to fulfill the purpose. So it's not what you do, it's who you become, because who you become determines what you do. What you do determines, who you help, and who you help determines, what you have, and what you have determines who you help. Are able to process. So it's that purpose. So I have to become that person. Personal development is number 2. Now, if I'm going to develop myself and change myself and become that person, I've got to get a strong mindset. I've got to have a philosophy of growth. I have to have a philosophy of development. I have to have a philosophy of how I'm going to approach life to fulfill that purpose. So I need a mindset, right? Thoughts control your mind, but you control your thoughts. And so I get to choose what I see, what I read, what I hear. I get to choose those things. So I get to do that. Now, once I've done that, okay, now I got to deal with people. So I better learn the people skills, because whatever business you're going to be involved in, there's people. So I want to develop the people skills to help them to understand how strong my mind is set on becoming the person necessary to fulfill my purpose. And once you've got that down, now you can move into leadership. Leadership's not a position, it's a process of performance. And so for me, the idea of being a leader is really isn't as much what I do as, again, I shared earlier, it's what other people do as a result of what I do. That's real success. You see, it's not possessions, or power, it's significance, it's making a difference. And so once you've got that down, then the real key, once you get it all together, you got to keep it in balance, because it's real easy, entrepreneurs especially, it's real easy to go down rabbit holes. You get your favorite project, but you still got the rest of the company to keep intact, so those are the things. It's the purpose, it's the personal development, it's the mindset to do that, developing the people skills, becoming the leader, creating leaders, and then keeping it all in balance. And that's what the book is. It's a compilation of all of that.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a link in the description so that people can pick up a copy of that book if they want to purchase it. So that way then they can read it. So one last question before we hike off today, and that is, and I ask everyone this, what is a book or a podcast that has had a huge impact on your life?
Well, I could say Rick Warren's, Purpose-Driven Life. I could say Bob Beal's Leading with Confidence. Those are two major factors, my top 3 list. But interestingly enough, the Bible is the most powerful document I've read. I mean, personal development, life development, believer or non-believer. We talk about having an attitude. We got to have the right attitude. It's how you wake up. Some people wake up, oh, good Lord, it's morning. Other wake up, good morning, Lord. So it's your attitude. It's our approach. The book of Philippians talks about attitude. We talk about our identity, who we are, what we have. The book of Ephesians, the first 3 chapters tells you who you are and what you possess. The second 3 chapters says, if this is who you are, act like it. Amazing. Nehemiah talks about leadership. First Thessalonians talks about mentorship. Everything pertaining to life and business is in that book. Whether you're a believer or not, doesn't make any difference, but it's there. And all the other books are just little deviations of what's in that one. You just have to know where to look.
Exactly. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really honored to have you. You've dropped some amazing information here, and I really appreciate you doing that for us. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Dennis, check out the link in the description.